Present.
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 Thank you. And Councilman Wade, thank you again for gracing us with your presence. And would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good job. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Adoption of the agenda. Do I have any amendments, motions?
Yeah, I have an amendment. From consent, I would like to pull out item, I just lost it, sorry.
That's okay.
6F?
6F?
Yeah,
And you want to move that to the action items?
correct.
Any others?
I have something from the HR schedule, but I think I can pull that out when we get to 7A.
Yes. You
Okay.
If needed, you could, a motion.
To vote
could be
on
made-
separate. Okay.
A motion could be made for everything but that particular item.
Correct, okay. So that's the only thing I want to change, is I just want to pull that from consent.
So we do have one amendment. Are there any others?
I would like to pull item D off the consent agenda.
6D?
Yes. And not to address, but I just would like to make a comment on that,
Okay.
a positive comment on that.
Okay. Any others? Okay, do I have a motion for the agenda as amended?
I'll motion to approve the agenda as amended.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Fantastic. Okay, I don't have any call to public cards, so we can skip right over that. Unless you guys want to rush out and get one and bring it in? Okay. Thought I'd ask. Large audience tonight. All right, Superintendent's report. Dr. Chestnut.
Thank you, President Coutre, members of the governing board. A record low number of slides tonight. I don't really know why, but still important, each one. On the 15th, the annual Kids Day was at Maricopa Wells Middle School, and I gave my annual 15-second speech that not really anybody pays attention to because there's so much excitement in that room that anybody that talks is often ignored. But I gave a greeting and welcomed everybody to be there. It was a great event as usual. On the 20th, I had a meeting with Phoenix Boys Choir director and the senior director, as well as the director of education. They are considering the possibility of they call them neighborhood choir for elementary age boys in Maricopa. And they're going to get back to us on, possibilities, but it would be after school, 1 day a week for boys. And then the commitment is to travel into Phoenix 1 day a week. So, I mean, it's kind of a family commitment thing. But as I get more information, I'll make that available. But obviously, it's a kind of world-renowned choir and quite an opportunity. They've established some of these community choirs around the metro area because it's difficult, for some families to make it into Phoenix for those rehearsals all the time. So anyway, it's an interesting idea, and I'll keep you posted on that. On the 26th, we had our first certified advisory committee meeting. So we started that committee last year, and we meet once a month. And had some really good discussion. And there are about 21 people on the committee. There's 2 from each school, 4 from the high school since it's so large, and myself. And we have some guest speakers, other district administrators will come in once in a while and talk on special topics and that kind of thing. But our focus is to come up with an action plan to make MUSD an A school district. And we had a good, action plan from our discussion last year, and that's kind of our starting point. And obviously, it's an ongoing discussion, and we'll have new letter grades by the next time we meet, I believe. I think they're out on October 9th, and the next time we meet will be after that. So we'll have a lot more discussion about that at that time. But anyway, this is an ongoing issue, and it's a good one, so it's a good discussion. I send out a recap of that meeting, probably get that in the next week or so, and it's off to a good start. On approximately October 1st, the newsletter will be sent to 20,000 Maricopa households, and that is the cover story, our ACT scores. So I'll look for that, and that should be in the In Maricopa magazine. Ram Academy progress, well, it is the same picture as last time. And it does look better than this. I apologize, I did not get up there and get a better picture, but it kind of does point out the issue, and that is the ramp. I should say ramps is the holdup right now. And as the city reviewed plans, they asked for a different ramp than the one we had designed. And it's actually on the agenda tonight to make that change order possible. Our architect designed one ramp, and the city asked for two. And this is not an example of the city being difficult. It's a request from them that is within their rights to do. That is requiring steel, or I should say iron ramps. Are they steel or iron? Metal. Metal ramps are being fabricated right now, 2 of them, and they're pretty big. So anyway, that is really the last hurdle, and then we will be in there. It's obviously taken longer than we would like. It's not ideal, but I think once we get it, we're going to be happy, and it's going to be a great facility for future use. And that's it.
Fantastic. All right, governing board member reports. Mr. Judd, let's start with you.
I'll keep it brief. I just wanted to mention and make it known to the public that Governor Ducey's plan for Teacher Academy officially went live as of today. And for those of you that aren't aware of it or haven't heard of it before, it is essentially 200 scholarships or full ride grants to either ASU, U of A, or NAU for anyone that's interested in becoming a teacher. That is an amazing opportunity for students. Anyone that's interested in becoming a teacher, you will basically get a full ride, and those are hard to come by. So if that's something that you're interested in, please take advantage of that. Obviously, there is a requirement at the end of that. You have to be a teacher in Arizona school districts. But you probably were going to do that anyways, so you're really not losing anything. So apply. Find out the information that you can and get a full ride scholarship, which is an amazing opportunity. I know a lot of people are talking about, well, you know, the bigger problem is better teacher pay, and I would say not to look a gift horse in the mouth. That's an amazing opportunity for high school students, and you should take advantage of it. It's not just available to high school students. It's also available for anyone that's considering a career change. So if you want to go back to school, it is available to those individuals as well. So take advantage. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Dr. Miller.
Yes, I know. I would like to first reiterate that fall break cannot get here fast enough. So I know, like the students, I'm counting the days as well. Last week, I reached out to Mr. Beckett, and he put me in touch with the transportation department. And to my surprise, that day, I was able to actually do a ride-along on one of our buses at Desert Wind. So I would definitely encourage board members, if you have the opportunity, to definitely do a ride-along. I had the pleasure of going to Desert Wind and also riding along with Mr. Rodney Lee. And if you don't know Rodney Lee, he's quite the character, and I can tell you that all the students on that bus had a lot of respect for each other. You know, the boy students wouldn't get on the bus, for example, until all the girls got on, and then, you know, and showed a lot of respect. So I know that wasn't, you know, something that they just rehearsed because, you know, a board member was coming. I mean, that was something, you know, that was there. So I thought that was very encouraging, and I know just like Mr. Lee, we have a lot of employees that are very good and do a great job. So good job on the transportation department, and I know that you're working well together, so thank you. And I do plan on doing another ride-along, so very good.
I've done some of those ride-alongs after school with the soccer team.
Kind of brings you back to the day real quick, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah. Mrs. Knorr.
Sure, just a couple things. I had the opportunity to attend many of the homecoming festivities, including the Ram Fest at Copper Sky and the homecoming game on Friday night, and those were all great events put on by the schools, and so we really enjoyed those. And then I also got to attend Kids Fest at Maricopa Wells, which is very well attended. I had never attended that event before, but I really appreciated all the community coming out to learn about all of the wonderful things that we offer here in Maricopa for kids. So it was a good week. That's all I have.
Mrs. Anderson?
Okay. October's coming up, so there's a lot going on since I know we didn't have a board meeting until the end of October. So I just want to remind people that October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and there are several activities going on, not only in the city but around the county. So on October 2nd, the Pinal County Attorney is doing a domestic violence proclamation and lighting the Florence purple. And then our own City Hall, Mayor Price will be doing a program on October 3rd, and they will be lighting City Hall purple. So that's really fun. And then October 4th, obviously, is the State of the City address, and I did RSVP. Don't know if you're RSVP'd yet. And then the 10th is the ASBA law conference, or legislative conference workshop. So I didn't know who was going to go to that, but kind of put that bug in your ear. I will be attending that. On the 15th, which is a Sunday, is our annual Taste of Casa Grande, which all the money goes to our domestic violence programs in Pinal County. So that's on a Sunday. I do have tickets. And then on the 17th of October, I will be presenting at City Council on all of our domestic violence programs in the city and what services we offer free to cost to people. So just kind of do an overview of our programs that we have and just kind of a DV kind of 101 type thing at City Hall. So during the agenda items. Anyway, so I just want to let everybody know that's what's going on in October. It's going to be a busy, busy month.
Fantastic. Well, I've had a couple of busy weeks, too. I attended most of the homecoming activities as well. And it was really nice to see, especially doing the parade again from Maricopa Wells and having some of those other schools and organizations within our community participate. It's really nice when we can incorporate everything. I'm hopeful that next year they're going to reach out to the business community a little bit more and get a little more advertising for some of these activities like Ramfest, because it's a community event. And I didn't even think they were going to go with the bonfire because it was so windy that day. But they ended up,
Yeah, it was a good night.
Yeah, it was a fantastic night. And, Tori was out there practicing her cheers.
Oh, yes, I was.
So, and she did awesome on the Friday night game. All of them did. I was really
thanks.
impressed.
It helps when you're in the back.
And put the young kids in the front.
It was fun. It was fun to be a part of.
Yeah.
Just being an alumni, come back. It's good for kids.
I love homecoming. I absolutely love homecoming. On Thursday, the 14th, I attended Desert Wind Middle School, Take Your Legislator to School Day with Representative Leach. And it was fun. Those kids are so much fun. They just really are. And it's nice to go back upstairs and see activity and classrooms being used upstairs. It really was nice. We did have the golf outing for the Maricopa football boosters this past Saturday. Sorry, Aaron. You had a good run. But it was a lot of fun. We had a lot of teams, and they raised a lot of money. I don't have the total figures yet, but season's still not over. We're still selling concessions. We're still doing our 50-50 raffle at the home game, so if you have a chance, come on out. On Monday night at the high school, they had the Meet the Teacher, but they also had a very good presentation by the Heifer Group for the FAFSA. And the Heifer Group is offering a free consult for parents to help get more financial aid. So I would encourage all the senior parents, junior parents, and even sophomore parents, because they'll help with the planning going forward, to really contact them. And I know the counseling office at the high school has that information. The FAFSA form will be available October 1st. The sooner you get it in, it's kind of like a first come, first serve with the money. So I do want to thank the Transportation Department for utilizing Connect Ed. Last few days we've been getting Connect Ed messages about bus routes that are running a little bit late, and I do appreciate them reaching out and getting that communication to the parents. And lastly, I know there's a lot, but tonight we were supposed to be at the Pinal County Arizona School Board meeting.
Yeah, county workshop.
Our county workshop, and two of us were going to be presented with awards. So Mrs. Anderson and myself were going to be presented with the Copper Awards And the Copper Awards is for the number of continuing education units that we've achieved, so all of our activities that we do outside of the boardroom. And I am so proud. Mrs. Anderson had 175 CEUs.
Woohoo, for someone who forgets to turn in their forms.
I know. And myself, I had 243. So,
Yeah.
so hopefully we'll be getting those awards. ASBA will be sending, and
Yeah.
then we can do a formal presentation at our future board meeting. And then lastly, just at our next board meeting, our next regular scheduled board meeting, please bring your calendars. We are going to reschedule that ropes course. I think it's really important that we, along with our district principals and cabinet, get together and really do a nice team-building activity. I think it's really going to be a good idea. And as Mrs. Anderson pointed out, it'll be nice and cooler instead of
Yeah.
doing it as we had originally planned. So with that, I'm going to go into our work study items, the discipline policy discussion. Dr. Chestnut?
The request was to review discipline policy. It's on board docs there as well as the information from the student handbook. So I'll be glad to answer any questions anybody has.
I have questions. Okay, so the policy is pretty clear. And I already sent you my questions, Steve, so I know you know what's coming up. But I just would like to know why, because I'm looking at the two different secondary and elementary, basically consequences, or how the principals, the guidance of how they should follow through on the policy. And I'm reading them, and they say the same thing, but the secondary is much more clearer, in my opinion. The elementary it's just a big, long, huge paragraph, and it's very hard to interpret. I think it's very hard for principals to be consistent, and that's my concern, is that the consistency among schools in how the policy is enforced or not enforced or whatever. I think the policy is good. I just would like to see some consistency, and can you just answer why? Because really, the secondary really is very lenient, I think, in the way that it's stated on minimum, because it says minimum and then maximum, which is very different from the elementary. So I'm just wondering why we can't just have one and let principals use their guidance.
Sure, I'd be glad to answer that. In fact, I have the two handbooks here, and if you have kids in school, you received one of these, or maybe both, depending on where your kids are. Also, just remind everybody, all of the student handbook information, this entire booklet, is on the website for each school. So you can look, that's actually the easiest way, because sometimes I can't find this, and I look at that all the time. So the question is, why the difference in the discipline consequences?
Yeah.
And about 5 years ago, my first year in the district, they were the same format, and the secondary format is a little bit, I think, easier to read. It's shorter, it's more concise, and like Ms. Anderson said, it just has a minimum column and a maximum column. And there is a range of items in each category. It's not like there's one minimum and there's one maximum. There's a range there, and also depends on the grade, grades 6 through 8 or grades 9 through 12. But it's still pretty straightforward, 2 little boxes. I'm sure you've looked at that. Elementary is a little different. It's kind of a list of possible consequences. And the reason we made that change was about 5 years ago. One of our attorneys from Udall-Shumway recommended that we make that change. In her opinion, our grid for elementary was not developmentally appropriate. It didn't give enough range of options to principals. And you know, the tricky thing about discipline is that it needs to be uniform and it needs to be individualized. And that's what makes good discipline. That's where you get a decision that is fair and is just. We don't use the word just very often, you know, in the school biz, but fair. I mean, you know, kids are all about being fair, and I mean, everybody, parents included, want consequences to be fair. And so that is the gist of the discipline grids, to give principals that ability to have a uniform set of consequences where the rules are the same for everybody, but they are applied individually, because no two kids are exactly the same, and no two situations are exactly the same. And that is the gist of how you get to a fair consequence. So that's kind of a long answer, but that's how we got to where we are today.
Okay. No, can we look at that again? Because clearly the secondary one with the boxes, and it's just so much easier to read even for parents. Or maybe writing the elementary one in that same format, because the way the elementary one is written it's ridiculous. It doesn't even make sense. So that's the one thing. And I have 3 other things. Can I go ahead and bring them up?
Please do.
Okay. All right. So I just would like to suggest, and we can talk about it as a board, on the drug and the intimidation offenses. And I know that it's, it offers OSS 3 to 5 days or long-term suspension or expulsion, depending on what it is. But what I would like us to look into is when it's a student's first offense, if maybe we could do a diversion or restorative practices behavior program so that the parents and the students get either the drug counseling or the bullying counseling or so that we can get basically restorative behavior is helping to restore appropriate behavior and get rid of the bad behavior. Just because when they're in OSS, off-school suspension, they're gone for 3 days. Oh, they can go sell more drugs, make more money, and then come back on campus and sell more drugs. So I just don't know the effectiveness of that unless there is some sort of a counseling combined with the OSS. So I would just like to see us look into that. Truancy, I just would like to know if we talk to any of the truancy officers, if that program is working, or if there's ways that we can improve that. Under the fighting on page 21 of the elementary section, it always talks about, and it says it in the secondary too, where it says mutual participation.
Yes.
And it's left open to the principal or the teacher to decide. So I just would like maybe to have a class or clarification with principals and teachers on what mutual participation is and how to define that, because it's hard when you're in the middle of 2 kids slugging it out. Was one defending themselves or was one instigating? So that's one thing. And then items I didn't see, which I think need to be added, are vapor and electronic cigarettes, which are not, all it says is tobacco. And then probably need to talk to our attorneys on inappropriate electronic photos or voyeurism. Photos they take with their cell phone.
Wouldn't that be covered under their pornography section?
It's covered under our policy.
It's under
not
policy.
It's not listed in the handbook.
handbook.
It's
Okay.
covered under policy, and so is the vape.
Right.
All that is covered under our policy.
Right.
It's just not listed individually
Yeah.
in the handbook.
I just like maybe some clarification on those in the handbook so that parents understand this is the real world we live in, and voyeurism is very popular and they think it's harmless, but it's not. So just some things I would like to bring up and see if we can address, especially on the the diversion restorative behavior programs.
So I have a question regarding that. Don't we already, I mean, if a student is this is their first offense, don't we already refer them or give them some sort of referral so that they can get help?
No, not formally, nope, not part of the discipline process.
So if we do that, if we give referrals, are we, the district, paying for this and requiring it, or is it just a suggestion?
Well, it's common in some districts to have, for example, for drug alcohol violations, you can reduce the number of suspension days by getting a drug alcohol assessment. And if you don't get the drug alcohol assessment, you can't reduce the number of suspension days. So there is a motivation there. There is a legal question there, and I actually have talked to our attorney about that, and I can't remember everything she told me, but there are some legal questions that we have in the handbook. Somebody can't afford to pay, they want to take advantage of it. Does that obligate us? And I can't remember exactly what she said, but these are good ideas, and we can certainly look into them.
I mean, I think it would be worth us doing a grant and paying for it, because I think that would go much further in restoring our students' behavior on campus and increasing the safety, increasing how that child is going to develop, especially if we catch them, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade before they go to high school. I just think that a lot of things could be deterred or at least helped, and I think it would be worth the expense. That's my opinion.
So
I'd like
to the
to
best
see what those
to the best of
dollars
your knowledge, Dr. Chestnut, in districts that do have that type of policy, who is responsible for the oversight? Who's responsible? Did the student follow up with the referral? Is that something that the school itself
Yeah, I've
typically
been-
would do?
I've been in
'Cause-
districts that have had similar policies, and, right, it's the assistant principal's job generally to make sure that that documentation is provided. It's not just an honor system, right? You got to
Right.
prove it,
Right.
You do? Darn
and you
it.
do.
Gosh.
Well, do we have any other districts that do something like that that's close by that we can look at theirs?
I know Paradise Valley does it, and there's other districts that do kind of a restorative behavior intervention. And sometimes, if they do it, they get it dismissed off their record. I mean, there's things that you can do with the juvenile court as well that I'm sure that Judge Riggs would be willing to work with us on. I just would like to see us work towards that long-term goal. Because
Right.
I think that, off-school suspension is, while it serves the purpose for 3 days, usually the child's going home with no supervision. And so they come back 3 days later and they're in the same situation. So I would just like to see us maybe be proactive and start looking at some of those programs. And I think it would be worth, again, doing a grant, or the city may even work with us, PD, because it's usually the same kids they're dealing with. So I would just like to see if we could do something through the juvenile court of Pinell County and through our own city court system. So, and I think that we can all work together. I think it would be great for our kids.
Some of these offenses, or some of these disciplinary things may not require any judicial acts.
No,
It's
I'm talking
strictly-
drugs and
talking-
alcohol
We're talking
and
like first-time
fighting.
offenders, and then
Yes.
finding them to see if they can get hope, and hopefully they do, but the second time. we
Then you're
gotta-
done, you're toast. But, no, just kidding.
Per policy.
So let me ask this. I'm curious to know, with all of our schools, K through 12, are there, do all 9 schools have access to in-school suspension?
Oh, that's a good question. I was going to ask that.
Yeah, they-
Well, that's a good question. Yeah, theoretically, yes. I mean, they can assign a kid to the office, and some schools do have an ISS person, right? The high school and Desert Wind. So it's an option. It's not as widely used in those other 7.
Because my concern, or at least one thing that really stood out, and I do appreciate all the documents that you sent us, and it was very informative. I really appreciate that. But the thing that really stood out to me is like on the minimums, for example, we have like safer aggression or fighting. And again, each principal has their interpretation of this. So if 1 is a conference, 2 could be ISS, and 3 could be out-of-school suspension. If they don't have in-school suspension available, then it doesn't appear that conferences is being selected, whereas out-of-school suspension appears to be the choice. So in a way, wouldn't that in a way be forced to kind of be a zero tolerance policy? Because
Yeah.
really all you're doing, I mean, just because all you're doing is, having an out-of-school suspension because there is an in-school suspension, or conferences don't seem to be, the preferred choice when there are mutual participations in exchanges on and off campus.
Well, I think it's important to kind of think of how discipline works in a classroom and in a school. And the good news is it works pretty well for most kids. And the reason it works is because we have teachers that really do a nice job in the classroom. And so discipline really begins with, discipline is teaching, right? So if you have a well-managed classroom, then you're going to have kids learn better. And that's one reason why teachers work so hard at having a well-managed classroom that's disciplined. And the teachers that I see, every classroom that I visited this year, do a nice job of taking care of that low-level stuff. And I hate to put a percentage on it, but 99% of the time it works, right? Now, if you have a kid that is acting up, every principal in the district has the expectation that the teacher is to address that issue. So if a kid is acting out, being disrespectful maybe to the teacher, disrupting the class, the expectation is that that teacher will contact the parent. And that is the main reason why school classroom discipline works, is when teachers have that relationship with the parent, they talk it through. And the good news is that most of our discipline is very low level, and that's the vast majority of it right there. That's an intervention, though. It's not very dramatic, and it's not even written into the grid, because it's part of our culture and our procedure in our school district that is what we expect. So that's important to remind people about. Also, it's also important to remind everyone that principals are pretty careful on working through a series of things with a kid. And I would disagree with your assertion that suspension is our go-to strategy, because I don't think that's true at all. I mean, there is referrals to our own counseling staff, and a wonderful thing we have this year is that we now have 3 elementary counselors, and so that is a resource that hasn't been available. Last year we had 1 elementary, this year we have 3. That is a resource that all principals take advantage of, elementary now and secondary level. So that's an intervention that principals use. Oftentimes principals will do a low-level thing like just talk to the kid. I mean, and sometimes people don't think that's an intervention, but it is. Just a conversation between the assistant principal and the kid, that's an intervention. Sometimes that turns it around. And those are that's the conference. And that is actually the go-to strategy, really, that principals use. Now, I would totally agree that in-school suspension is one additional tool in the toolbox, and it is true that it's used more at the high school and at Desert Wind because they have the full-time in-school suspension staff person. That is true. But the fact remains we have a limited number of interventions that we can use to address behavior, and that's kind of the way it works. But Dr. Miller, I would respectfully request that we not characterize our discipline policy as zero tolerance. That is inaccurate. We do not have zero tolerance policies. There is one exception, and that is because of federal law. If you bring a gun to school, zero tolerance. You get a year expulsion. Now, we have principals that use judgment, and they are good at applying the discipline grid so that we have consequences that are fair. And I am not saying they are perfect, but I am saying that I've been so impressed with them over the last 5 years, that they get it right the vast majority of the time. Now, they're not superhuman, they don't always get it right, but I will say that they use our current system, and I think that they're making it work.
Thank you for that explanation. And I was just playing the devil's advocate, so I really appreciate what you said for others that may have some of the same concerns. But me as a person who really believes in prevention interventions, and I think Tori and board member Anderson and I have common ground, and not just drugs and alcohol, but I think in bullying and fighting. Yeah. I'd much rather see, and I didn't mean to characterize that's out of school suspension is the first thing they do. I know that's the last, but it happens, and we know that. And I would having my magic wand, I would much rather these kids, instead of being out of school suspension, I'd rather for there to be more in school suspensions available and other preventive interventions, as board member Anderson was talking about.
Well, I appreciate that comment, and I think it's also important because this is a discussion that I know people are watching on YouTube, and I think it's important that we get all the information out there. The other thing that I am very excited about, and that is the fact that we are implementing positive behavior intervention systems at all 6 elementary schools. We're in year 2 of training at 3 of the schools and year 1 of training in the other 3 elementary schools. We are tentatively planning to go with positive behavior intervention systems at the middle schools next year, and that addresses this issue where we work on the positive behavior of it, right? I mean, the whole idea of that system, and there's a lot to it, but the gist of it is that if we have positive reinforcements for the kids, it's going to work for about 70 to 80% of the kids to address discipline in a positive way. And then for some kids, obviously, that doesn't work, and then we have to have a different plan for them. But it's a system that's campus-wide that gets everybody on the same page, and that kind of thing helps also and addresses this issue, so hopefully we'll have fewer suspensions.
Okay. Dr. Chestnut, if we can start maybe looking at, like how Paradise Valley does it, maybe some of those intervention programs that Mrs. Anderson brought up, we can start reviewing some of those and see if we can how we can implement them with our policies.
Especially with our
for
secondary
next year,
students.
You know, going
Sure.
into next year.
Sure.
I think, you know, anytime we can help a student stay in school and fix behavior is obviously to our advantage as well.
And if I may close, I just would, as a parent, I would just like to express, and most of you know my children, and I would just like to express that I feel that with my children and their behaviors have been dealt with very well with our schools. So I'm very happy, I'm satisfied with the quality of redirection that they're getting. So I definitely see that positive interventions in the school. So I just wanted to reiterate that. I just wanted to somewhat play a devil's advocate in order because for us to look at this at different angles that we may not be looking at from somebody else's point of view.
If you're devil's advocate, that means I'm the devil in this discussion, right?
I didn't say that.
All right, let's move on. Great discussion, and obviously, we're going to have our work cut out before the next year's handbook, so.
Yeah.
Consent agenda, and please remember that we have removed 6D and 6F. So do I have any motions for the consent agenda?
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, so we are going to first review 6D, approve the Maricopa High School Band and Orchestra trip to Anaheim. Dr. Miller, you asked for this one.
Yeah, I just want, now, did we vote yes in this, or do we need to do a vote and to
We also
favor
have to
this
vote.
first?
We'll need to vote on it now that
Okay,
we've
okay.
pulled it off.
Well, I didn't pull this off in regards of, you know, yay or nay, but I just wanted to, I thought this would be a good opportunity for the community to see that this band trip to Anaheim, if we, you know, approve that, of course, that this is part of our tax credits that go to this. And so people out there that are, you know, do donate, that these are the type of activities within our schools that the tax credits go to. So I just wanted to kind of do a PR on that and let people know that the good things that the credits are going for, and this is one of them.
They do use some of their tax credit money. Not a lot of people use it. I would think you would be able to use it more, but they are also doing several other fundraisers.
Fundraising
Yes.
and yes.
At all the football games, they're selling stuff, and I think they're doing volleyball games
Yes.
as well, so.
But a piece
Oh, yeah.
from the tax
Yeah.
credits will go to this, and I think that this is well spent.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other comments? Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve?
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
A motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Have fun in Disneyland. Okay, and item 6F, approve the change order awarded to the contract for the modular solutions for the purchase of a repurposed modular building for the high school RAM Academy. Mrs. Anderson, you asked for this to be removed?
Yeah, I just wanted the public to have clarification as to why that fund, why the cost increased. And so I did ask Dr. Chestnut and Aaron. Aaron had a great response. So, Mr. Roush, could you provide, I wondered why this wasn't calculated in the initial bid. And so I just wondered, I mean, I realize $10,000 and all that probably isn't that much money, but to me, it's a lot of money. So I just wanted to know why the bid came in, why we had to redo it, and why it's more. And I know you talked about it at the beginning, but I just want to make sure the public is clarified on why all of a sudden the cost has gone up specifically. It wasn't our fault, so I want to clarify that.
When we went out to look for modular buildings, the first place we go and anything that we look at is what's out on our consortium bids. And this was a pre-bid item that we could go out on. And with that pre-bid item is the building itself. So the building itself was pre-bid for a certain amount. The ramping and anything else is not part of that. So, and part of the reason is because when you do then get a building like this on a campus or in a particular community, certain building codes are then needed. And so they don't even put that out to bid because that's just an add-on that we won't even know till later. For instance, this particular ramp had to be engineered and stamped by an engineer, then had to be approved by the local building department. And so we wouldn't know that. And so
Okay.
it's always going to be change order. We thought it was going to be less, but our city department decided that we needed 2 ramps instead of 1 ramp. We do have a door in between the rooms, but anyway, so that created a little bit more of a challenge for the engineer, and even for the spacing of the whole ramp and the slope, that has to be a certain slope for ADA and stuff. So it's a normal thing to have as a change order.
All right, thank you, I appreciate the explanation.
Any questions? Any motions for approval?
Motion to approve.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now we have a ramp. All right.
2 ramps.
2 ramps.
Two ramps.
trips. We have stairs.
And stair, yeah.
Stairs, whoa. Bill didn't see that.
Living life
That's right.
large.
Let's set ours down into the ground, so we didn't have to do that. All right, item 7A, discussion and possible approval of the personnel schedule. Good evening, Mr. Beckett.
Good evening, President Gutierrez, members of the governing board, Dr. Chestnut. I know Member Anderson is going to have a question, but I'm more than willing to take any of your questions at this point in time about the schedule tonight.
Well, we'll let Mrs. Anderson go first. We already know she's got a question.
I just want to employee number 20. I want to pull that off and vote on that separate, because I cannot, in good conscience, approve to offer this person a contract when I know their past history, when I know the complaints they've had, when I know things that are not quality, that I would hope we expect of our teachers and staff. And so as a parent and as a board member, I cannot approve that person for a full-time contract. I would rather see us continue to look for a teacher that is quality and actually likes our students. So that's
Mrs.
my...
Anderson, can I make a suggestion tonight that we simply
Yes.
just pull that agenda item? Can I work maybe through the personnel portion of that request,
I would love to see that. So you mean get more information?
please?
Yes, yeah, I would love to see that. So that was my only question when I saw that come up. It's a huge concern as a parent and a community member. So
Thank you.
I just want to put that
I
out
just have one question about that, besides Mrs. Anderson's question. And it says a new position.
Yeah.
What new position, or was this one of the override positions that we never, or one of the attrition positions that we never filled?
This was a position, thank you, President Gutierrez, this was a position that we did have filled, but that we ended up having an opening come late in the year. The person did not accept the position who we had already contracted to come in.
Okay.
So they backed out. So again, this was a solution. Again, we were looking for a long-term solution with a certified, qualified staff member, and this individual was filled in on a temporary basis, and the decision was to try to offer him a full year contract. But again, my suggestion is we pull this off. Let me go and work through the details.
I would appreciate that.
And this person right now is a certified substitute for the district, correct?
He is, yes.
Yeah, he's doing a long-term sub
Right.
Through
Yeah.
Smart Schools or through us?
Through us.
through us.
Okay.
Well, I'm sorry, yes, through Smart Schools, yes, we would be employed.
Okay.
All of our substitutes are through that agency right now.
Right.
Thank you.
Well, no, don't we have some substitutes that are full-time employees from the district and not through Smart Schools?
Yes, correct.
we do.
President Gutierrez. We've actually relabeled them guest teachers to kind
Ooh.
of separate them.
Nice.
Thank you.
All right. Are there any other questions?
Yes, Mr. Beckett. On number 2, that position, do we have any applications that have been submitted for that position, and are you in process of interviewing?
Thank you, Dr. Miller. Yes, we have received applications, a number of internal candidates in particular. I'm hoping to have that finalized for our next board meeting.
Oh, very good.
Approval.
Awesome.
Any other questions? Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve with number 20 taken out for further information.
I'll second.
All All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Beckett.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, discussion and possible approval of scheduling a special board meeting in October during fall break. This is just going to be a very, very quick meeting. It can be done on the phone, not necessarily,
there we go.
does everybody have to be here in person? It's just to go over the financial report. And one of the dates that was thrown out there, suggested to me, was October 12th. It's a Thursday,
Seems like something's
and that
going on.
would give Mr. Roush and his department plenty of time to get the information that is needed for us to approve.
I will be out of town for fall break, but I'm certainly fine with that, as long as you have a quorum.
Yeah, we just need 3 of us.
Right.
Yes, I'll be out of town as well, and I don't think I can commit on the phone because if I do, I'll probably forget.
That's 2 down. Josh,
I'm okay with that.
are you home, or are you still teaching?
No, our break is later. It's the third
So
week in
you-
October.
Need an evening?
And actually, as a matter of fact, that's probably when I'm going to end up utilizing my school visits during that week. I'll be contacting
Okay, so
principals.
we'll
but
have to do it an evening meeting then.
I'm whatever
Oh,
time
'cause
is
you're
fine,
working.
especially
It's
if
on
He's
the
it's...
12th.
working, yes,
Yeah.
he's working.
Yeah, in terms of it being on the phone, it would be kind of awkward.
Yes.
You think, during class?
Yes.
Oh, come
a little
on.
bit. I can pull that off, though.
Mr. Judd,
I
what
have my Bluetooth. I could two conversations.
Actually, what a great lesson in government that you could be teaching.
Yeah.
You should put it on speaker, let them all
I
listen.
don't know if I should admit to this, but I was at a life skills class, and I was going through. I had gotten a very important phone call on a airplane ticket, in a discussion with the customer service rep, and I basically allowed them to listen in, and I'm like, you guys need to listen to
This
this.
is how this
All
works.
right,
So this is
so
how this goes.
Okay,
So I
so
may
the-
be able to do that.
the 12th is a Thursday. I guess I could probably come in the evening. We can make it at any time. Mrs. Anderson, what does your schedule look like for the 12th?
Right now, it's open. I was trying to go to Flagstaff, but I can certainly put that off until Friday. What about Wednesday evening, the 11th?
Well, you could do it Wednesday, you could have
You think
everything
you'd have it done
ready.
by, I mean, either one. Either one will work, so if you want to do the 12th at 6?
Well, I mean, Josh, since you're the one that's coming in, I mean.
Yeah.
Miss Tori and I, we live here, so what time do you get into town? So, we don't want to take time away from your family, during their fall break, so we could do it as soon as you want, so anytime you want in the evening.
Like I said, I'm working, so.
Can you be here by 6?
Okay.
Will that work?
So do we want to do it on October 11th, or do we want to do it on October 12th? 11th is fine by me.
Josh, you?
So, all right, so why don't we do the 11th at 6 PM?
Here at the district office?
Here at the district office.
Yeah, that works. So the 11th at 6 PM, and we'll be done
Okay, so
by
I
6:30.
need someone
yeah.
to make a motion on that, please.
Okay, so motion to schedule a special board meeting to talk about submit the finances on October 11th at 6 o'clock here at the district office.
Perfect. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Great. We'll put that on the schedule. Now, since you all have your calendars out, we'll move on to the next one, which is discussion and possible approval of scheduling a study session to really discuss the strategic plan. I think we need a special session. After hearing all of our comments at our last meeting, I really think we need just as a group to get together and have that discussion. And I don't think, we don't want to waste everybody's time during a board meeting, a regular scheduled board meeting. So,
Can I make a suggestion?
yes.
It would be very easy to put some of these, the strategic action plan into our team building workshop. So for principals and district office to kind of brainstorm, I'm just throwing it out there. It's an option. It obviously wouldn't be us discussing, big decisions, but I think it's something that we can throw an idea out and kind of work through the process. So I'm throwing that out there as maybe an extra boost to the strategic plan, if you wanted to wait till November to do that.
That's fine. With the ropes course, we know we have to do on a Saturday.
Correct.
That has to be on a Saturday morning.
I think we could do both. I'm just saying, I think if we meet before we do the ropes course, we could tie in some of our thoughts
We could make the
with
ropes
the
course
program.
much more interesting and attempt to do it while navigating.
It gives a
the ropes
purpose.
course.
Yeah, it gives a whatever.
So, all right, so do
You're
you want to
obviously more
have that a
coordinated than
special
me.
meeting prior to the ropes course, or do you want to have it after the ropes course?
Steve, what do you think? I mean,
We could do that. We just need to have someplace to sit down and go through the paper, and I think we just need the 6 of us, and I actually think it could go pretty quickly.
so maybe do it before,
Sure.
maybe do it like the beginning of November, and then do our workshop, a week or so after, so that we've got some topics and some discussion.
So talk about doing the ropes course in the beginning, and
No,
then
do this meeting,
this meeting before.
yes.
Okay,
So that's why I'm just trying to, so maybe the first week in November, or, the beginning part of November,
okay, so our regular scheduled meetings for November are
8.
8th and 29th. Those are regular scheduled meetings.
Oh, because we changed the 22nd, right?
Well, yeah, I don't want to be the day before Thanksgiving.
Oh, come on.
No, because that's when I'm having my Thanksgiving dinner. I had to move it up. I got a soccer tournament in California I got to leave on Turkey Day.
Okay, so,
So throw me some dates. Or do you want to do it in October 25th is our...
October's just too crazy. October's
What
over.
about November 1st?
For our board meeting,
For the special meeting to go through the strategic plan?
I'm good with that.
November 1st is a
It's a Wednesday.
Wednesday. November?
Or the 2nd, or the 3rd. I mean,
November 1st, Wednesday, November 1st, this is for...
This is just to go over the strategic plan, kind of throw out our ideas, and then when we gather with the, after, then we do the ropes.
and then
course
we're going to
afterwards.
incorporate it into our
Not on that
challenges.
same night, but-
Not the same night. It would just be nice to incorporate some of the discussion into some,
When we do the ropes course then.
some team building activities to kind of work through the issues.
So would that mean that we are doing the ropes course that Saturday?
No, not necessarily.
No, but just sometimes shortly thereafter.
I was going to say, if we're going to do that, we need to make it pretty close, or we're going to...
Oh, forget, right, exactly. No, I understand.
be lost.
So
No,
this-
because we have a great secretary that's going to take all the notes.
And we have YouTube, so we can always watch it or listen to it later.
So then their proposal is for
November
Wednesday,
1st?
November 1st?
November 1st to have the special meeting to go over the strategic plan, a work study session.
Now, could we have that starting at least at 6:30?
Certainly.
What about,
Nothing sooner?
we could even start 6. What time?
No, later. He wants later. And I
Yeah.
Oh, you want
I-
later?
Yeah, so, I mean, I prefer that, but then again, you can always start and I can get there. But it's just that way because my wife drives in from Phoenix and she gets here right about 6 o'clock, so.
We could almost do it at 7. I mean, we
7's
can
fine
start
with me.
anytime.
Yeah, 6:37's good for me.
You want to do it 6:30 or
Josh?
7? Which you
I'd prefer 6:30.
6:30 is good.
6:30?
Okay.
Okay, so we're looking at doing November 1st at 6:30 PM for this work study session to go over the strategic plan. So looking at your calendars, not that we can't vote on it tonight, but looking at your calendars then, if we wanted to have that ropes course, just kind of think of
Which
this, of a
Saturday?
Saturday in November, that would work. Obviously, the 25th would be out, but just kind of look at those dates and, okay?
Well, I will say we can't do the 4th because, well, we could do it during the
We
day.
could do it
Yeah.
on the 4th in the morning.
Yeah.
So, see what your schedules look like for the 4th, the 11th, or the 18th,
Or the
and we'll talk about that at the next board meeting, because we can't really talk about it tonight,
And,
okay?
and kind of an FYI, if it's Saturday, Saturdays are really good for me.
Good.
So
Good.
best
Well,
day.
the 11th is Veterans Day, so it would need to be the 4th or the 18th.
The 4th or the 18th?
So if you guys can look at your calendars, that would be awesome.
Okay. So we'll put that on the next agenda. So we'll put those 2 dates on there, and hopefully we'll be able to do it. Because we're also going to ask all the principals and to be there too, the cabinet, okay? All right, so right now, we've got a November 1st date at 6:30 for a work study session regarding the strategic plan. Do I have a motion for that?
I'll motion to approve the strategic plan meeting for November 1st at 6:30.
I'll second.
I have a motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, see how we're just booking through this? All right. 7D, discussion and possible approval of the district's 2017-18 301 pay for performance compensation plan. Is this you, Mr. Beckett?
It can be. Thank
Okay,
you,
well,
President
then it's
Cutray.
you.
Members of the governing board, you have tonight in front of you the information regarding our Proposition 301 pay for performance plan. The plan is identical to last year's and the year before's plan. Each year we take it for review with committee. We send it out to staff and administration for their comments. And then once we do that, we then submit that for an all-staff, certified staff vote. Again, statute requires a 70% for passage, approval from the staff for passage, and this year's number was 76.67%. So we did exceed that, and we're just recommending that you please approve this plan again for this year.
Mr. Beckett, I have one question. I know that in the past, we've always been able to have it pass over the 70%, but the 23% that said no, do you guys look at, like, is that a specific school site? Is that a specific work group, teacher work group? Just
group.
Yeah, I'm just curious. Do you guys know where that is that 23% any specific target?
Great question, President Cutray, and again, it's something that, again, this year was a little problematic for me, and obviously, I think there's going to be some digging we're going to have to do, I think, after the fact. I do believe that it meets the statutory limits, and that's fine. I do think we probably need to do some homework and figure out why those 23% were again, concerned about it. Again, I think this is a very teacher-friendly plan, and I'm hoping that any concerns that we raised be something we could quickly and easily resolve. So more than willing to reach out to staff and ask them for their input on that as well, too.
Mr. Beckett, couldn't that information be acquired through next year's survey, through SurveyMonkey, if they're going to be, you can basically work it into if it's a no vote and explaining why?
Yes, that's Member Judd, that's certainly a possibility. I've done my best in the surveying process to make it as anonymous. There's always a feeling that somehow we're tracking information for individual teachers and school sites, and we've really not done that at all. So, but again, we can ask for a little bit more input. Some people are more willing to express those concerns than others, but yes, we can obviously ask.
Okay.
Thank you.
I mean, it is a small percentage, but I would like to see our plan, approved over 80%. I just think that we're doing some phenomenal work with our teachers, and I just want to make sure that they feel the same way too, especially when it comes to the 301. And who knows how much money is going to be in there in future years anyways.
Right.
Okay. Any other questions?
I just thought of this question, so Dr. Chestnut, or if you don't have the answers, that's fine. But it seems to have worked the last couple of years. Last year, how many, people that challenged the pay? How many? Was it less this past year, or was
Yes,
it?
I think it was one.
Okay. Okay, that's what I wanted to know. Okay. All right. I'm good.
Okay. Any other discussions, questions, or motions?
Yeah. Motion to approve the 301 performance compensation plan for 17-18.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Discussion and possible approval of the first reading of updated policy GCQC, resignation of, say that 3 times fast, resignation of professional staff members. Dr. Chestnut.
Well, I'm going to have to call Mr. Beckett up here because he did all the research and looked at about 11 different policies. And Mr. Beckett, it's all yours.
Thank you, Dr. Chestnut, and members of the governing board. Once again, you know this policy. Hopefully you've had a chance to kind of read through some of the supporting documents. I did research every single liquidated damage policy that is listed on Arizona School Board Association's policy manuals. And again, you see some summary comments that I made on a supporting document there. I think just a couple of interesting points I want to pull out is, the vast majority of districts that are involved in a liquidated damages are rural districts that struggle with probably this issue more than urban districts do. In addition to that, I believe there are many districts that have this language built directly into their contracts, and so we will not have a formal policy that maybe is addressing this as specifically as what we are doing. And as you can see from some of the historical data I provided, that was our plan for implementing the liquidated damages fee for a number of years. Then I believe about 4 years ago, the decision was made to let's look at that policy as let's pull it out of the contract, put it into a policy, so it would be a little bit more uniformly understood by not only the board but also the employees. So I'll take your questions at this point in time. I think you see much of the information in there is very similar to what we do, but there is obviously Heinz, I wouldn't say Heinz 57, but just a variety of different flavors to each of those policies.
Mr. Beckett, I kind of did a little bit of my own research as well, and I do definitely appreciate all the information that you provided with us. Peoria, Unified, they have not only policy, but they also have a regulation on how they collect the money. But they don't specifically put a dollar amount in there, but what I like about Peoria's is they do list kind of the different reasons that they would be subject to liquidated damages, except for a few reasons. One of them is retirement from the retirement into the onto the Arizona State retirement system, internal promotion to a position that involves supervision or advancement in title, internal. I like that word. Verified medical reasons, or they move out of country, state, or country beyond the employee's control. And I kind of liked the way that Peoria, how they listed some of those reasons. And then it says, additionally, the governing board may waive the liquid damages in circumstances when an agreement is reached with the district for resignation, job performance, issues related to required certification or licensing, or other circumstances judged to be out of the control of the employee. And I think that kind of covers all the discussions that we have been having on this policy back and forth. And then I don't know if we would need it, but their regulation to this really does spell it out. And the regulation doesn't have to be board approved, but it really does let them know what they have to do in order to meet these criteria. So for me, I would maybe kind of like to look at this policy, Peoria's. You guys can pull it up too off of the board docs. I like the way it was written. I think we can incorporate some of that into ours if you guys wanted to do that.
You can correct me if I'm wrong, but that sounds like putting us kind of a little bit back into the situation where we were, where it was almost like a piecemeal approach to, there's a couple of line item things that were going to be almost corralled into having to accept. And I think that's where we got into the discussion last time, is that we wanted it kind of wide open. It was kind of it's going to be one way or the other, where it was going to be just completely up to our discretion and up to our vote without condition, or we were going to get super specific about it. But I don't want to go backwards and then start putting back into certain little conditions, because then we're going to get into that same discussion.
Okay.
I mean, and I'm just throwing that out there as an observation from the last time that we discussed this.
It still gives it out as far as like the governing board may waive the liquidated damages. It still gives us those leeways. And I'm fine with the corrections that we have on it right now, on how it's presented. But what I was hearing from our last few discussions is I was confused. I thought we wanted to have a little bit more. So I thought, okay, so when I was looking at all these and I was looking at all the work that Mr. Beckett had done and those clauses in there, so I just wanted to bring that.
If we make them very definitive and very specific, like even up into in terms of mileage, You know, that works, and that's something I'd support, but they need to be super specific, and we need to stick by them.
Or leave it open-ended.
Right, or we leave it wide open. Mr. Becker, were you responsible for the rewrite? Who was rewrote the policy?
We did.
Yes. These were suggestions came from the board. I think Dr. Chestnut actually did some of the wordsmithing on that policy.
I like the way it's wide open as of right now, unless, like I said, unless we want to go the other extreme and make it very specific, then I'm in favor of keeping it the way it is here. Otherwise, we really get into the tall grass when we start discussing the details, and I mean, we could spend a whole nother session on doing that, and
Yeah.
I'm fine with that.
No,
Well,
I'm fine with the way
what-
it is, but I just wanted to bring that, because I hadn't found that.
Can I throw something out? I also looked through the papers. Thank you for the documentation. I really appreciate it. Holbrook, I don't know if you looked at that one. Short and sweet and to the point. I mean, it's you know, it's very short, it's concise, it's probably half the length of ours, but it leaves it open. It says the governing board contracts with an appropriately qualified employee to replace the resigning employee, or the resigning employee demonstrates compelling reasons for the resignation. It's just, and then it says the board may assess up to $2,500 after May 15th.
Yeah.
May 15th is their cutoff date for no assessment. So, I mean, it's kind of what we say, it's just shorter. The other one that was really short, I thought was good, was Valley Union High Schools. Also seemed to be very clear, to the point, very open-ended, didn't peg, you know, anybody into anything, but it was very clear what those costs were for, what the liquidated damages. So I would suggest, I don't know if we have to move on this tonight, but I don't know if you had a chance to look at those, but I just like the simplicity.
Actually, the Valley Union goes into very good, big details. They actually bullet it all the way down.
But it's exactly what we're talking about, but it's still open-ended. It's not,
Well, to
So-
be honest, you know, if we just want to continue being, you know, the vague and having that leeway, I would just prefer just to leave it as how we have it now, with the corrections about the first student day and the shall
Yeah.
being changed to may. I mean, I'm fine with this way.
And if I could just mention something, I think one of the things that's been very beneficial to me is oftentimes I'm the one that is bringing something to Dr. Chestnut, to Cabinet, and eventually to the board for consideration. I think I've got some very clear guidelines from you on what you like to see in a reason and what you don't like to see. And so I have appreciated the clarity that I've received from this conversation, if nothing else.
I think it's been good discussion.
Yeah.
And, you know, the 3 changes we made, I'm good with, but more I appreciate the discussion and just clarification. So
Right.
I'm good with keeping ours the way it is unless
With the
Dr.
change-
Chestnut,
changes.
with the 3 changes, unless Dr. Chestnut wants to look at those other ones and come up with a different solution, but,
I kind of like the way it's presented tonight.
okay,
Minimal changes.
yeah.
So,
Motion to approve GCQC as amended?
all right, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Yay. This policy. This one has been going on for a while. I'm so glad to put this one to bed.
Well,
Okay.
and I discovered it's interesting how states do it, different states do it
Oh,
differently.
yeah. Oh, yeah. Discussion and possible approval of the first reading of updated policy GCQF. Dr. Chestnut, I believe you had some clarification on this for Dr. Miller.
Yes, we meant to fix this last time, and I forgot to put it in there, and the request was to put the clause from ARS that says there is an exception. You could have a firearm on campus as long as it's locked in a
Staff.
car. And staff could have a
Staff.
firearm, yes, thank you, very important. Staff could have a firearm locked in a car out of
Thank you.
sight, and that would be permissible, according to ARS.
Yes, and we have the ARS statute in there.
Yes.
I just want to point out that I believe Mr. Beckett pointed out last time that that could be problematic in terms of its connection with the federal law.
Yeah.
We ran it by ASBA, and attorneys said that it was permissible.
Well, it's an ARS statute, so we're kind of bound to the statute language.
Those, that's true, but I mean, it's just good to keep in mind that when it gets into
Yeah.
the courtroom, the
Well,
federal
let's hope
government
this-
will have it
Let's hope this
say.
never happens,
Yeah, well,
that we never have to use this policy.
yeah. Well, I promise I don't think this will start a civil war again either, so I think that we have good teachers and
Yeah.
so.
All right. Are there any other questions?
No, with that, I would like to approve the policy as written.
All right, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Our last action item, adjourned to executive session pursuant to ARS 38-431-03A4 for discussion or consultation for legal advice from the board's attorney, and discussion and consultation with the board's attorney to consider position and instruct its attorney regarding the board's position relating and pending to contemplated litigation or settlement discussion conducted to avoid or resolve litigation. Do I have a motion?
I have a
Motion to approve to go into executive session.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We're going in executive session. It is 7:41. I don't think so. There's no.